Welcome back. This is the Pivotal Podcast, Real Talk. My name is Lauren Meese, Ohio Realtor and Career Development Lead for Pivot Realty Group.
Lena, Kentucky Realtor.
So today we wanted to keep it kind of simple, kind of open, and it's, I guess, more basic. What we wish we knew before we became real estate agents.
And what we're glad we didn't know.
And what we're glad we didn't know, yeah. There's probably a couple things that if we did know them before getting into there, I don't know if either of us would have actually tried.
I would not have.
Yeah. I think it comes from, I came from the healthcare background, you came from teaching, and this was something totally different for both of us. At least I'm speaking for me. Was it different for you too?
Totally different. I thought it would be totally different, actually. I thought it would be sales, and I was terrified of going into sales because I'm a teacher. I care about people and relationships and all those things, and it didn't feel like the thing that I was supposed to do with my life. But what I found out is that it really is all about relationships and feels a lot more like teaching than I could have imagined it would.
What were the things that initially gravitated you towards this career versus staying in something like teaching? COVID? Okay, elaborate.
Sitting at home, working on Zoom, thinking I might need a change. And I had lost the connection with kids. It was more of a job than it was what I had always felt it to be. So I kept thinking the word pivot a lot. Saul does not believe me, but that is what actually brought me to pivot. Was I knew I needed a pivot, and that popped up. And I also, I guess to be blunt, wanted to make money. My husband had always made money. He had won a trip, a very, very nice trip. I was like, if I get rewarded in my job, it's going to be getting to wear jeans. And it's not taking anything away from education, but I had hit a point in my life where I was older and I kind of wanted to be seen as a professional. And while teachers should be seen as professionals, they're just not. By a lot of people. And yeah, so I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted a grown-up job, and this came along.
I think for me, it was unexpected. So again, COVID, it was me being in healthcare became a quantity over quality. It was get through as many people as you can without actually feeling like you're actually helping anybody. And I went to a school that I had a lot of student loans, and I would never make those student loans back. Even with my degree, I wouldn't have ever made that money back in my life to pay off all those loans. And working the same hours as I would have in real estate, if not more. And at least here, I'm my own boss. There's no one saying I have to be there every single day. I choose to show up because I want more for my life. And thinking back to how I ended up at Pivot is I was just scrolling on Indeed one day, and I actually asked my dad, I was like, hey, you think I could be a good real estate agent? He's like, oh yeah, you love talking to people, go be a real estate agent. And I just remember coming in here and feeling like just the atmosphere of it was very similar to a previous job that I had that I really loved. It was very much the family. It was very, everybody wanted to help each other, which I don't feel like fits in with the majority of companies and or just the majority of sales in general. It's not that feeling. So that's actually why I chose Pivot. So that's kind of heartwarming. That was a good start. So in terms of different topics that we have for today, one being what didn't you know about the financial aspect of being a real estate agent? We'll start there. I know it's broad. There's a couple things that go into that. How about we start with commissions? What did you know? What didn't you know about how commissions work?
So with commissions, I didn't know more than I knew. I had bought several houses, and I always knew the commission on the sheet and wondered a lot about how that got split up. You've heard split a little bit. Back then, real estate agents didn't really talk about where it was going and how it was. So I knew it was a big number, but I didn't know all that it divided into. And I think even as I was starting, I didn't really think about the taxes, the fees, all the things that go into paying for the marketing and paying for signage, and which Pivot covers for a lot of that, but that big number becomes much smaller once it's the brokerage gets a cut, you get a cut, the other brokerage gets a cut. You're paying your taxes out of it. It was different than expected, and definitely a big learning curve for me on how to manage money, because you don't just have the check coming in every other week and know exactly what that dollar amount is going to be monthly.
And just to, I guess, simplify it a little bit more for people who may not know, like behind the scenes stuff, we are independent contractors.
Mm-hmm.
So we are not a traditional employee, clock in, clock out, have a set number of hours. It is you show up and you work what you want to work. But here's the thing, if you don't show up to work that day, you don't get a paycheck. And even when you do show up to work, you still may not get a paycheck, right?
Yeah.
Until you actually convince someone that, yes, you're the agent for me, and then we actually close on that property. We generally are not, I mean, everybody does things a little bit differently. Different agencies do everything. At least the way I do my business, and I'm assuming the way you do your business, we don't get paid until we close on the house. Correct?
Right.
So a lot of people don't understand that too. Even like sometimes when I'm working with my buyers, they're like, well, how are you getting all this money? And this, I'm like, no, I actually am going to do all this work for you up front, and I don't get paid until we actually close on a house.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to be there, and I still want to go to all these houses with you. I want to do my due diligence and always be there with you, because that's what my job is. It's
Right.
relationship building more than anything else too.
I think the showing up to work is something that people don't understand either, because when you say that, I think a lot of people would think, oh, go clock in and sit down at your desk and you're working.
Yeah.
But that's not what work looks like for us. I mean, I'll be honest, I can get out of bed, check my emails, answer a bunch of things, and while I'm having coffee, I've started my day. I can then stop and do my yoga and relax
Yes.
a little, and then my phone's ringing and I'm working again. So there's a flow to the work. It's not that I never come into the office. I do, and I think I do better when I come into the office regularly. But I do have weeks where workflow takes me in 100 other places, and I might not get into the office at all. So clocking in is definitely not a thing.
Yeah. I also want to reiterate with that too. When you're not in the office, you're also working.
Yes, that's what I mean.
You're also with clients or out and about. It's not you're doing other life things that are keeping you busy and all these
things.
Right.
It's looking at properties, running comps, meeting with clients, meeting with prospective clients, showing open houses, a million things. Honestly, paperwork keeps you really busy when you have enough deals going. I can sit at home and lose track of time because I've just handled all the inspections and title company paperwork that I need to do. And, 2 or 3 hours have gone by, and I've, talked to my clients, sent paperwork where it needs to go, filled things out, and then I have to run to meet somebody. So I didn't make it to the office that day. That happens a lot.
Well, let's talk about that then. What things did you not know about the time commitments or how time works in real estate?
I have always been pretty good at managing my time. I think probably that's something that I don't know that you know or you don't know coming into this. I think it's something a lot of people just naturally do, is manage their time, and others don't manage their time. I do think it's important to be able to manage it. And if you're not great at that, you need a set schedule. You need that planner laid out in front of you at all times, scheduling blocks of time for certain things, because it can get very off track if you let it.
And I tell all of our new agents, right, for your first kind of 1 to 3 years especially, I tell them you need to treat this like a job, even though it's a career. And what I mean by that is we're really bad as humans at being our own boss, especially if we've never done it before. We are really great at promoting ourselves when we do what we were supposed to do or do something great, but we're really bad at punishing ourselves when we're our own bad employee. And so to create those habits and to create this sense of accountability within yourself, one of the things that I always tell people is schedule it out, like what you said. Put it in a calendar, clock in your hours, say, I'm going to work from this time to this time. And also, as humans, we're really good at wasting our time, where we think we are clocked in, and then, oh, we go to someone else's desk and we're talking, but we're not talking anything about real estate. But you're like, but I was at work for 4 hours today. Well, 2 hours of it, you were out talking to somebody else, and then you were out like walking around or doing this. Well, okay, I only got an hour of work in that day, really, and prospecting. So I think that that was something I didn't realize when I started in real estate. And then I feel like people don't realize that like weekends and evenings, how much we actually put in on those times to actually go into real estate and actually grow our business. I don't think a lot of people realize too that sometimes means sacrificing time with friends and family, or doing that fun thing you wanted to do. You know, like
Yeah,
you
I
can
don't
speak to
think
that.
it always has to be that.
Yes.
Obviously, there are times where if you have a client and they can only see things on the weekend or only see things in the evenings, you're going to work those weekends and evenings. Yesterday, for instance, my husband was so happy. All he wanted to do all weekend was a boat ride, and we had a million things to do, including a lot of real estate things that I had. And I got a call yesterday morning. The only thing we had planned to do was to go on a boat ride, and I had 2 showings pop up at 2 and at 5. So I went at 2, and he went down and started getting the boat ready. I didn't tell him about the 5 o'clock one until I got there. We went and filled it up with gas and went back to the dock so I could drive off to my next showing. We did fit a boat ride in though, so it's all about compromise, working around things, and realizing that yes, you might be putting in a level of work that you wouldn't if you were working for someone else, but the reward, there's nothing like the freedom you get in being your own boss. Not free time, but the freedom to make as much as you want, to work as much as you want, to make things happen. You're never asking someone for a promotion. You're just climbing as high as you want to go, as long as you're willing to put in the work.
Okay. So tell me this then. So it's a little bit different, changing direction. What did you not realize about the either prospecting or marketing of yourself that you would have to do as a real estate agent?
So when I started, I began working with FSBO, for sale by owner people. And the way that I started working with them was phone calls, cold calls. And I was the type of person that if my phone rang and I did not know who you were, I did not answer it. I never do that anymore. People laugh at me how much I answer my phone.
Yes.
But I didn't want to make those phone calls because I didn't want to get those phone calls. I had to talk myself into that. And I had a few moments where I was like, what have I done? Why am I here? I've spent money to get here, and now I really am uncomfortable with what I'm doing. And then I did it. And once I got past the I don't want to and just did it, it wasn't hard. I never had anybody hang up on me. I know that's not everybody's experience, but I never had anyone hang up. I had really good conversations. And even if they chose not to work with me, it was just about helping them and asking what I could do in order to get their end result, which was still selling their house, whether they did it with me or somebody else. So yeah, those kinds of things I was not prepared for, and probably would not have come to Pivot had I known that that was going to be one of the first things that
you did. Yeah.
My mentor told me to do.
So we had the same mentor. Shout out to Patrick Eschen.
Patrick.
But one of the things that he had me do is I had a listing when I first got into here, so I got lucky with that. But he said, go door knock that neighborhood, invite them to your open house, which great idea. And the first door I knocked on, they had, of course, the Beware of Dog sign in the front, and it was this guy, I still remember it. Thankfully, my now husband was in like the car with me because I was so scared to go by myself. And I knock on this door, it's this guy. He is 6'7", and if you don't know me in person, I'm 5'10", I'm a taller lady. This guy was huge, and he just looked at me with the straightest face. I just remember me going, hi, voice crack. I'm doing an open house down the street. Didn't even tell him the address. I'd love for you to come. Bam. Door shut in my face. Now, knock on wood, that is the only bad door experience I've ever had. It was my first door. I'm like, well, it can't get worse than that.
Right.
And actually, it didn't. And what did I do? So I stopped that day. I was like, well, that killed my confidence. But then the next day, I went back out to that same neighborhood, skipped that door. And funny enough, I ended up getting like 5 people to come to that open house.
Yeah.
Now, did it sell from that open house? No. But it wasn't as scary the second time.
Right.
The worst had happened
Right.
in my mind. And then I also didn't realize, too, like social media.
Yeah.
Right. So I thought, and especially me coming in a little bit younger, social media is going to be my thing. Right. And I said, okay, well, if I just post on my Facebook photos, everybody's just going to flock and come to me because obviously I'm their real estate agent. Right.
Right.
Not the case.
Yeah.
Not the case for anybody. I think that's what a lot of people, when they think social media is going to be my path. Well, unless you become either someone that's likable, credible in your neighbor or in your network, or you become the guy that just posts more content or higher quality content than the other guy, they still might not use you.
Yeah.
And even the people that know and like you, your friends, they might not use you either because they know how new you are. Like for me coming from healthcare, they're like, oh yeah, well, I trust you with my body, but what do you know about selling a house?
Right.
Probably nothing.
Right.
So for me, all of my first clients, they were all strangers.
Me too.
And a lot of mine were friends of friends, either Facebook people, or I've gotten a girl on TikTok before. I've gotten people from LinkedIn even, and I don't think I do anything special on those networks. I don't think I do anything that anybody else couldn't do.
Yeah.
I think that one thing that me and you are good at is we actually bring value to people. And it shows that we care about doing a really great job for people. And I think that's why so many people hire us.
I think staying in the know in the market is big too.
Right.
Not just, a lot of people think of real estate agents as door openers and let's look at the pretty houses. And a lot of people maybe get into it because they think, I hear this all the time. I really like looking at all those houses. I could do that job. And really opening the door and looking at the house is this
Very
much
little.
of the job itself. So that's not a great reason to get into it maybe, but it doesn't hurt to know about houses. What I found was I've always been really great at talking, but I didn't necessarily want to talk about real estate because I felt like I was being pushy and salesy, and I didn't see myself as a salesperson. So, like, I know many times we would be sitting out having brunch, and my husband would hear somebody start talking about selling their house, and he'd be like, "You should say something." I'm like, "No, absolutely not. I will not." And once I got past that, what I found was every party we go to, every time we're at any social event, people are coming to me and asking about real estate. And because I stay on top of it and can talk real estate, they're coming to me and asking, but I had to get past that. I don't want to sound salesy. They're going to think I'm just trying to twist their arm to work with me if I start talking now. Mostly it's just about helping people and giving them whatever bit of information might be helpful in that moment.
How'd you get past that?
Good question. I just started doing a little bit of it. And I mean, honestly, like, you work with a bunch of strangers at first and they don't necessarily know that you're new to it. I told everybody I was a teacher previously because honestly, it gave me a little credibility. They were like, well, you're not an idiot, so you must be able to do this too. But getting past that feeling of being salesy and just helpful was a big part of it. And learning from all those deals that I did with strangers, I had a much larger amount of information I could share. And I learned to study the market and pay attention to all of the news things around us that sometimes are way more scary sounding in the headlines than they are in real life. And I just started talking about that stuff to people.
Yeah. I think for me, I never really had so much the salesy thing that really bothered me. How I got past that, at least relatively quickly, was I'm bringing value to people. Really, our job is just to teach and influence people as much as we can to give them a positive outcome. So for me, I never felt super salesy. the thing that I had to get past was I started at 24. So I had to click that thing off in my brain like, oh, why would they hire me? I'm 24.
Right.
That held me back so much because I was too scared to reach out to people who had homes because I'm like, well, they probably got a real estate agent. There's people that have been in the business so much longer than
Yeah.
me. And I was
And
just
I'm sure you had plenty of agents who said, well, I've been doing this for 30 years, honey.
knock on wood. I've only had one on the phone actually say it to my face.
Only one?
To my face, only one.
Well,
I've had someone.
at least 10. And then I'm like, I'm 51, so I don't know how long you think I've been doing it. But
how has real estate affected your relationships in a way that you didn't expect it to?
In a way that I didn't expect. Good question. So my kids have probably been the ones that make me realize when I've worked a lot in any given moment. I've taken calls. This sounds terrible. I sound like a bad mom. But when I was brand new to it and I felt like I couldn't miss a call, I couldn't let something pass. I took a call at a dance competition, had to walk outside in order to hear the phone call. Felt really bad about that one when she realized that I had walked out. She wasn't performing. I didn't miss her, but I did walk out. I've been talking to them in the car and gotten a phone call and I see the eye roll. So there are moments where you not only need to schedule real estating, you need to schedule family. And I'm not somebody who says, I will not work from this time to this time. That's never going to be who I am. But I do note when I'm doing something important, time with your kids only lasts so long and they're all growing and moving away at this point. So when I have those moments, I'm just going to text you. I will call you back at XYZ time. I've learned to manage that because those relationships were probably the ones that it hurt a little bit. I have to remind my husband that he was the one who kind of pushed me into this job and said how great I would be. And I've been pretty good at it. Yes. But that takes time. So he has to give up some things too.
Yeah, I think for me, when I first got into it, because Steve was the person that pushed me into it too. Like, my dad told me, yeah, apply. But since then, Steve has been my best supporter in that way. But it is hard sometimes because there are days that I come home at 8 and 9 o'clock at night. Yeah. And he's got to be okay with that too. Yeah. So I think that's a separate topic, but just being aware of who you choose as your spouse and or having those conversations up front before you start something like this. How does it actually fit in with your family and your dynamic? Because everybody has a different dynamic. I don't care who you talk to. And just, is this the right fit for us and those things? And I would say he probably appreciates the financial outcomes that have come from this and what that is. And Steve knows the vision and where we're going. And like, we have a house now and all those things, right? Those are goals we probably wouldn't have had yet at this time if I hadn't had done this. And so they're appreciative of it, but also having those open communication and those things. How about relationships outside of those that are your family and friends?
I've built really good relationships with clients that I now consider to be good friends. I've gotten phone calls from clients. I got a phone call a few weeks ago from a client who was letting me know that her mom was being put in hospice and they didn't expect her to last very long. And I was one of those few calls that they made before they told everyone. And that was a really sad moment. But I thought, what an impact I've made with this family, working with 3 of the generations of this family, that they felt like they should call me, that I was somebody that made the list. It was a moment. Like, I was teary when I got off, thinking I was just selling a house and here I am. I feel very connected and involved with their family. And, less so. Friendships have arisen all over the place, but it's definitely a relationship building business.
100%. I think back to 2 of my first ever clients, and one of them, they had 4 kids. Their youngest daughter had stage 3 brain cancer. And they already had their dream house, but the reason that they were selling it was because they wanted to be closer to her hospital and be able to pay for their medical bills. They didn't want to have a mortgage. So sitting there at that table and like me tearing up because I was just so excited from them tearing up. And because this was during COVID too, and I found him a house for 120K, which is nothing, even in our area that's so affordable. And it was a perfect house. This house in another area probably would have sold for 350K. And I remember just sitting at the table, and they go, man, like, you are the best real estate agent we have ever had. We've had 7 or 8 other agents, and I don't think I did anything tremendous. Obviously, this was actually my very first buyer deal that I got on my own. I didn't do anything special, I don't think, but I communicated with them, and I was just always there for them. I was always in their corner. And for in some ways, I'd probably go the extra mile, because I'm like, no, let's see as many houses as we can today, because you got all these babies. I'm not going to make you drive up here. They were driving from 3 hours away. And he goes, 7 or 8 other agents, how long have you been doing this? I'm like, 3 months. Oh my gosh, you're just a baby. Well, I did a great job for you, right? But now those are some really important people in my life. I never knew them prior. And they just reached out to me just a couple months ago, like, hey, just wanted to let you know, she's cancer free, by the way. I always have to give people the good stuff too. And they are actually looking to potentially upscale their oldest daughter. She's going to the Army now. The 2 boys are bigger, and it's kind of cool. I might be selling the house, like my very first one that I picked up on my own. So but those relationships are huge, and I'm going to also invite them to our community trunk or treat and just fester those relationships.
And we're there for all the things.
Everything.
Weddings, divorce, babies,
big milestones,
all
everything.
Of the things are part of real estate, and I think that's what makes it so special, and why relationships in it are so important.
Yeah, and it gave me an excuse to reconnect with people that I had fallen off the planet with. I don't think we realize just in our lives how fast time really goes. And I thought back, I'm like, man, like, I should really reach back to these people from high school. I should reach back to these people I was friends with years and years ago, and just reconnect with them, just for the purposes of reconnecting, not even for this. And I think in COVID, we lost so many of our communication skills that when I do that, it just feels so good. That's the thing that's been the most rewarding to me in real estate, beyond like the financial part, beyond just like me feeling like I'm helping people. I feel like I have so many more people that I can go talk to. Now, are we best friends with every one of them? No, but just having more people, and or being the person that they call in times of need like that. Like, my old high school invited me back to actually speak at their graduation a couple years ago. And what's so funny about that to me is I came from a school with people that literally are on Broadway. Literally are in the movies. And here comes Lauren, who's in real estate, and just really cared about helping people. And they said, we would really love for you to represent us and induct all these students into their alumni society. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so special. I just remember being on that stage so scared, but I went up there and did it, and it was awesome. So those are moments I don't think I would have ever gotten if I didn't have gotten into this. So this one's a little bit different. What goals did you not expect yourself ever in your life to be able to achieve that you already have? Because I feel like we both have a couple of those. And or are there any that new goals that you have for yourself that you're willing to share, at least?
Okay. So yes to goals that I wouldn't have been able to do in my past life. So I think maybe the danger, my husband calls it the danger of working in real estate, is that you start wanting to buy all the things. I really love working with investors. A couple of my very first clients were investors, and I kind of went all in with them. And what I found in working with them was that I wanted to do it too. So I did. We bought our first investment property last October. So had it for almost a year now. It's got a working, functioning Airbnb on it. I love to stay when no one else is there, which isn't very often these days. We've got a historical house that we're working on. I'm going to put a real estate office in there. None of that would have been something I even considered doing, and I don't see us stopping at one. We've got our eyes on a lake house. It probably won't happen this year or next year, maybe 5 years. But that's definitely a goal that I don't know that we would have set. I wouldn't have set it. My husband might have, but I wouldn't have. So like those kinds of things, a lot of it becomes real estate related because I've figured out how to do a lot of the things, and in working on these deals, you find out things about financing and how to get a deal and what to look for, and you get pretty comfortable with um, looking at structures and figuring out if they're gonna like fall down or if they're pretty good. So I'm less scared of buying an investment property than I would have been a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and goals for the future are probably still fairly real estate related, but also just getting my kids through college and
Yep.
paying tuition that I know I wouldn't have been paying. It's good and bad.
Yes.
I would have not made enough money and they could have gotten loans on their own, but now I don't get an option. So there's that. But it does feel good to be able to know that my kids will have something, and like neither one of us really had or have any kind of inheritance coming to us. So it will be nice to know that we're leaving something
Behind.
Yeah.
To the future generations, right?
Yeah.
And I think similarly with me and Steve, like we're talking about investments and doing things like that. We got a house much sooner than we even expected to, much higher priced house than we ever thought we could even afford. It's one of those things that I never thought I'd be able to get something more priced than even what my parents had, right? And now I'm at this point where, now I can start giving back to my parents, helping them pay off some of those debts, paying off these student loans. So for me, it wasn't that I had 10 or 20K in student loans. I had over 100K because I was at a private college.
Right.
And now I can pay those things back. I don't have to stress about them. And what's so interesting about all of this is I'm like, I'm not even 30 yet. I think that that's just like, that's a blessing in itself because I still haven't probably even reached whatever my full potential is. I don't think you have either. But what that could be for me and Steve, because he's older than me too. So he didn't even, he kind of gave up, I'll be honest, because he's 8 years older than me. He's like, it's not going to work out for me. I was like, man, what a limiting belief for yourself at the ripe age of 35.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't think there's ever a time that's too late. I don't ever think that there's a time that's too early. But just know that regardless of when you start, that there's going to be challenges that come with both of those things.
Right.
And being willing to overcome them, and more than just being willing, committing to yourself that you're going to do it.
Yeah.
I think that's the main take home for anything real estate is just commit and do it until it works.
In life, really.
In life, yes.
I think commit to what you're going to do and you can make it work.